Welcome. In today's episode, myself, Brandon, and Amit talk about liberation. I feel that when the subject of what is awakening, liberation, or any other concept that describes what has been described for millennia in spiritual circles, it can get too philosophical without being rooted to any actual changes that manifest as a consequence of such liberation. So, most importantly, what are the implications of it? Would this be the healing mechanism for Earth, for the environment, for war, violence, for hunger and poverty? Also, if nature, well being, and art is of your enjoyment, please come check the daily content we post at woketype.com. Without further ado, here's the episode. See you around. These series are called Liberation series. These kind of new show, these new podcast show. So I figured out we should address what is liberation, and along with that, talk about the implications of liberation. So what is palpable, I guess, and what changes in the world, how people relate to each other um in this way to see the world and oneself. And would things change for the better, like the environment, our care for Earth, for each other, all these things. So I guess as a starter, maybe we should speak of our own understanding of what is liberation. And it's I guess it is a term that has been used for thousands of years, but certainly along with awakening and all that stuff, but certainly as a polarizing definition, mainly in the last, I don't know, 10 years, that spirituality went through so many paths, I guess. So the way I see liberation, I would describe it as the search for peace. I guess that's the most encompassing way to describe it. If I had to say that what everyone is looking for is what I refer to as peace or contentment, in the sense of not needing any external factor to to derive one's utter contentment. How would you guys agree or disagree with that?
I think that it becomes so very light-hearted. Nothing is that serious. That's the first biggest lifting the weight of your chest that happens. Everything is so serious. Everything is so like specific, but it isn't. And that's what happens. I think you aren't so absorbed in thoughts and situations anymore because they don't really have the same impact or weight, or you just sort of, what is the easiest way to say it? You just brush it off, right? It's not anything.
It seems to me that a lot of my experience with suffering has to do with aversion, that that you have just spoke of, this desire of wanting a certain things and thoughts a certain way, to manifest a certain way, in detriment to another type of thoughts and feelings. So I've always seen as a phenomena, and a really interesting one, of aversion, a play of aversion, essentially.
100%.
I like that. Yeah. I feel like for me, when I think about it, when someone has stopped relating to their self concept, their idea of themselves, the story of themselves, the character of themselves, then they stop engaging in that way. So they're not always engaging to advance that character or protect that character. They're more rooted in the happening as it's happening versus how they're perceiving it. So what that looks like is is more connection. You know, there's less deliberation about this and that, and you're there. Mm, it it's gonna be closer to a better interaction between people, more quality engagements. Because in a normal engagement, when you have two people who are identifying with their self concepts, then you have four people in that conversation. You have the two people that we can see, and then each person has a idea of the other person, and that's who they're talking to and relating to. And so when you have someone who's liberated, they're not doing that. So you have one person that's just really present with the other person as they are and as they're expressing. And then you have the other person who sees someone and is projecting on top of them, and that's who they're engaging with. And so, you know, the more we remove those other people that aren't really in that conversation, I think you get more direct communication, you know?
If you love mangoes, no one else around you loves mangoes. They all hate mangoes. What do? You know?
Love that mango.
Hmm?
I said you just keep loving it, you know? You eat more.
You love the mango. You eat the mango, right? And the enjoyment of the mango is for you, which you're doing. And in what way can you agree or disagree about the experience of the mango? Well, how do you agree or disagree about it? Or how do you even convey what it is? So if you've realized that experience is one's own, only one's own, it has nothing to do with anyone else or anything else, time or space or anything. It hasn't anything to do with those things. It has to do with one's own thing, one's own imagination. So to transcend that, what has to happen, you see, is that the experience, which is a sensory experience, has to be seen exactly what it is. Only then can the peace arise. The peace is the absence of other experiences, isn't it?
I like that.
When you don't have any experience, you say, I'm peaceful. Like in sleep, I slept very peacefully, very blissfully. I was completely at peace. I had deep sleep.
Yeah, and we have decades that prove that. I mean, we have decades of searching for happiness, peace, or whatever word describes that search, but it is evident, or at some point it should be, that what we search as peace is always fleeting and always has the other side of the coin, that when it ends, it becomes the opposite of happiness because it is taken out.
One thing that keeps coming to mind here when I'm thinking about the effect, what that looks like. The more there's people out there in the world who are not adding to the noise, or even just adding less to the noise, that's powerful. It lets those ideas be shaken up and then seen through, and that gets us more present with what's actually happening. And imagine your fellow man that you're engaging, and he's not looking at it as me over here with my family over here versus you out there, and he's looking at it, we're all here. You're here and you're me over there, and what can we all do together? And all those ideas that need defending, and all those ideas that have these concepts about you and me, and the distortion held within those ideas is all freed up. And so I think it would be very powerful. I think that's kind of what we're doing, right? The more we can boost this signal and get people to tune in, just become aware, and that awareness, I think it's very natural. That's the effect, you know. And then you don't have to think about it anymore. It's not in contrast to anything.
There is no notion of improvement or progress or evolution. There is no change possible. One doesn't run around trying to fix anything. There's nothing whatsoever to fix. If something is happening, it happens.
If this information of what it means to be liberated be widespread, would that be the healing method for the problems that we face today?
Absolutely.
What is that problem?
I think it was shut it.
See, first of all, what shut what? There's nothing to shut. It's like you have to see clearly that this problem is imagined.
That's what I'm saying. It would become clear. So what problem can these leaders fix when it's just an idea? All they're all doing is taking these ideas about what's happening and then forcing that on reality. So this is the idea, and then we're pushing it. We're coming from this angle. So I think you got to get really clear about what is happening before you can decide what is a problem. And so the more we can pull the energy out of what is imagined to be the problem, and now, no matter how close that may be, it has some truth. If we can pull the energy out of that and come closer to what is actually happening just right now, it kind of it clears all that. It really does. It makes space for that imaginedness about it to be felt in what is actually here.
But let's say that as you have your own job, let's say that now your new job would be to solve violence. What's your ideas to implement as a first step?
To solve certain basic requirements, the Maslow's hierarchy is a good place to start. If you really want to, basic stuff, nothing too complicated, nothing too grand, First is food. Got to feed people. If you're hungry and you have no food, you're going to do things that you cannot control. If you expect hungry people to behave a certain way, that's like ludicrous. People don't know what hunger is, actually. People only imagine hunger. Because all the time, most people, when we talk like this on podcasts or over, coffee or wine, we're all privileged, extremely privileged to be talking about it, as if it's something we can discuss. Very, very polite conversation about food. Not so easy for the 2 billion people who have no food. And you want them to, be civilized, or you want them to be XYZ and all that. No idea what it is, hunger. Hunger is like a fire. It's a fire. You got to put out the fire. It's burning inside. Real hunger.
Yeah.
Not what shall we eat today? Where should we go? I'm bored of pizza. Let's eat something else. It's takes days to pick a place. That's not hunger at all. It's just an idea. Real hunger, you won't even know what you're eating. You will not know it because you will be eating it. That is eating without any mind to what it is. That is the hunger being satisfied. And you don't need much food, actually.
The experts say that there's literally no resources to feed everyone. And I'm trying to understand if Amit as another kind of knowledge on that.
You can feed everybody. There's nothing. forget studies. Like literally, what does it take? Let's say that you want to feed everybody. Okay, how much will it cost? $1 a day per person. It's probably a lot actually. You don't need $1 a day. In India, you could feed people with like 10 cents a day. With dal and basic, lentils and just the regular food that you would eat in, places like that, or, Africa, like normal food. I'm not talking about like fancy food. But even if you needed like $1 a day per person, $3 billion a day is what you need to feed the lower 3 billion people who are hungry, let's say. The rest can feed themselves, right?
The argument is that money won't do anything because there's not enough land that produces food, not enough fertile land.
Well, we waste 30% of our produced food every year. 40%, some absurd number like that.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
it's not at all true, and I'm not talking about the idea-filled. You got to feed everybody a certain way and all that. I'm talking about basic nourishment, which can be done in a decentralized way. Starting from the top, you basically create these basically food kitchens, right? There's nothing so complex about it. The same food kitchens, a larger network with the $1 a day per person, with basic organization, is let's call it, even if you want to double that estimate, triple that estimate, you're talking about $1 trillion a year globally. You think it can't be done? The world economy is probably $200-300 trillion in, let's say, the next decade. $200 trillion, 100 trillion. So a 1% per year can feed everybody.
It gets a bit ridiculous because there are these studies that mention that the Earth doesn't have the capability to produce as much food because the soils are such in a bad state. And meanwhile, there's those statistics of how much food is wasted. And I've seen it firsthand. So it seems that a lot of it is, figuring out how not to throw so much healthy food literally in the garbage.
Restaurants too. They throw out a lot of food. They have leftovers, cooked food, but then they can't give it to anyone. They just throw it in the trash at the end of the night.
This sense of separation in my mind, if I have to comment on what is happening within the news and all that this sense of separation is the root cause of people's actions that hurt the environment, that hurt the other people, etc., etc. So I think there's urgent need to reform the way that spirituality is understood, because we were deeply spiritual like 2000 years ago, going back to the Buddha 5000 years ago, and then we became to fall into a more scientific society, and for good reasons, right? To remove all the layers of esoteric traditions and all that. I think it's a noble pursuit, but that sense of morals or knowledge that religions used to breach and make easily accessible to people have have plateaued, and society doesn't have that, is not drawn to that kind of setting anymore, and again for good reasons in my mind. So it seems to me that there needs to be a reform in which these teachings that have been on the human tradition for thousands of years be more accessible for everyone to understand in a language that doesn't promote so many esoteric ways for people to neglect it and all that. So the question is the same. Like, if you were put like on the stand to fix these core issue of humanity and their sense of connectedness, how would you guys do it?
Yeah, I think you're dead on with that. When we shift to a more scientific model and explain ourselves, it's very external. So the other religions and things, those models, they kind of touched upon the more felt sense of self, right? So then you get to feel yourself, and then you can feel that connectedness. Those models include a level of connectedness, where the scientific one has broken us up into parts, so we feel very separate. Or we're bitted in our minds, so we're bitted in the way we interact with each other. So yes, I think if we were to create some sort of way to bridge that gap, I mean, that's kind of what I'm really interested in doing anyway, because we used to have people who did that. We had that structure in our society. We had mystics, we had shamans, we had these people who were outliers to the society. They lived beside society but not really in it, to kind of help people come back and connect with themselves, right? So anything that we can do would be helpful in that area, and I think in some way we can see that's happening, because it's a whole, that there's a whole shaped, I think, you could be said, within people, in that regards to that aspect of themselves, and its lack of description in their ideas of themselves doesn't allow them to experience it. And so the more we can get that out there, how do we do that? Well, the fact that you said, even with what you said, like, how can we make it less esoteric? Like, we have to accept that esoteric is okay, right? What is esoteric? We have to change our current ideas about what's going on. Otherwise, the engagement becomes a battle, right? Because we'll be so compartmentalized off. You'll have the real world over here, and then you'll have this other thing you're trying to explore, and you're trying to figure out how they connect. So we have to, I think, engagement, just showing up, things like this podcast, or anywhere you can see it, where we can get it into our media. These ideas, they have to be spread amongst the collective, but they're very catchy. They're getting out there. I think the more awareness we can bring to these ideas, and have some, we'll probably need new modern ideas, right? So those ideas, they're kind of, they had the voice of that then. They were constructed from the leading edge of what was at that time. So now we're at the leading edge of these conversations that humanity has been having with itself and existence, about what it means to be human. We're at the leading edge of that, because all of what has been said, I can say more. And so right now, we should be, I think it would be a good idea to kind of maybe construct something that's more current, and we to have voices that are out speaking about this in the now, what it feels like today, and maybe we can get something out there that doesn't feel so outdated and is more present with where we are right now. And I think that would take care of itself, right? It would move. It would totally receive a lot of resistance, because outside of that, when people who are encountering it, they're gonna have these old ideas about it, and they're gonna feel like it's a religion or it's a thing. But we gotta get it out there. It's just, we'll have to see. I think that'd be cool. Boost the signal.
Quite agree. I think one of the things that we'll see, and certainly I'm working on this, and I know others are, is new universally available technologies that leverage the correct nature of reality. Today's internet, today's technologies, business models, societies are all built based on an incorrect understanding of reality. But we don't have to go and teach people reality. Reality already is what it is. So if you know what it is, then you can actually use that knowledge to build better systems, better processes, better business models, better outcomes, because you're aligned with how things actually work. And you don't have to go and explain to people in words what it is, because everybody knows it already. It's not that awareness is actually not there. Awareness is very much there, it can never be lost. And we are simply resurfacing something that works for everybody, not in some grand sense of the word, but in a very natural, normal sense of the word, because that's how things actually are. So to build natural systems and to build naturally, to build and to design systems that are built on nature and the natural order of things is what is called as the enlightened period of activity, or whatever it is that we want to usher in. It's your natural state. It's about the whole thing about knowledge versus actual experience, right? For example, everyone knows that going to the gym is a good idea. I know it. I have a freaking gym membership for the last 12 years to Equinox, which is about 3 blocks from where I live. In that period of 12 years, it's probably, I can count how many times I've actually been to the damn gym, right? So, what does it mean? Do I know that it is a good thing to go to the gym? Can I claim that knowledge because I have this membership for 12 years? Should I tell everybody how good it is? Should I feel good about it? Or I already know that it's a sham. And the person who goes there every day without any thought about it or any sermonizing about it, they just go every day. They go there every day. And if they don't go, they don't feel great, and then they have to go again, or whatever the situation is. Between the two of us, I would say, even if they never utter a word about going to the gym in their entire lives, I think it's pretty clear what one can take away from our actions. Doesn't need explanation there.